Tom. Where is the account? There it is. Okay, and I see it. Okay, great. So that's running. Howdy, howdy. This is sound check.
Hi there. Oh my gosh, I thought you were in a room with other people.
I know. I was saying this is me celebrating the 1-year anniversary of our last in-person, or really marking the what? No, morning, the 1-year anniversary of our last in-person. Okay, well, let's see, it's 5:34, so just give it another little bit, and then we're gonna go. Sound like a good idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My hypothesis is that people are outside enjoying the weather. That's what I told V-Paul. I was like, some may have chosen sunshine over PTO.
Yep. And who can blame them?
Which I do not blame anybody for that. I will put that out there. Yep.
Although it sounds like a little tornado outside. A little bit.
It is. I was actually sitting outside before this and I was like, oh, I gotta go inside. Like everything we had to like clean up our yard. And so, chairs and stuff are flying everywhere.
Oh, I was thinking the opposite. I was thinking I don't have to clean up my yard. The wind's going to take care of it for me. Blow everything to the yard next door.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Enough of the banter. Let's get down to business. Hi, everybody. Welcome to March. And I think we can keep it fairly informal. And we did have top of the discussion point update from Principal DePaz, and so Brianna is going to be speaking on both their behalfs tonight, right?
Yeah.
So you can certainly just take off, carry away. I know there are going to be a couple of questions, and welcome. I think there's a new name to the list today, or I'm just really bad with memory, but welcome to the folks who are new.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're here, or we're glad you're here. Bancroft is glad you're here. So just a few updates. We don't have too much. Our learning mode changes, we continue to see more students return to in-person, and we do watch that fairly closely. Right now we're at about, it's in flux, so it continues to change, but about 60% in-person learners and about 40% that have stayed distance learning. After spring break, we will be opening an additional first grade in-person classroom. And so we do have an influx of first graders who will be starting after spring break as well. And the additional classrooms throughout the building, we're really monitoring closely just to kind of see, for kindergarten and first grade, our number was really, we wanted to try to stay under 25 for students. And that's where we needed to add that additional classroom for first grade. And we're not there yet in other grade levels. And so we're just continuing to monitor. The district did put a end date for learning mode change, or the last date to request a change to in-person. And so we're expecting that we'll see a fair amount of requests, and that's April 26th. So that has gone out, that communication has gone out to families, I believe. It's on our website and from a newsletter just stating that, so you can request up to the 26th to return to in-person. And then, so that would be the last return date in the building would be May 10th. And I really think that's just to have really a solid end of the year and just really move forward. It's not been easy to make changes, but I feel like Bancroft has done a fairly good job of it, welcoming students in within that 2-week time frame to get students back. I guess I'll just kind of go through my updates, and then if you have questions, feel free to ask, or if anybody sees a question in the chat, feel free to stop me too. We submitted our budget. I know last PTO, Mr. DePaz spoke about that a little bit. There weren't any changes from what he had spoken about for the budget. It was submitted. We also we're able to start some live specialists for our distance learners. Kindergarten and second grade this week, and first grade will be starting the week after spring break. And we're gonna, excuse me, be able to go for a while with that. But if we do need to add more in-person classrooms, there may be a shift again. But we're gonna give it a try, and we'll be flexible as needed. And I think, oh, and we also have, I mean, I hate to say this out loud, I guess, but up to this point have had 0 cases of COVID in our building. Knock on wood. I always hate to like jinx us, but so we've been following protocols and doing the best we can there, and it's been going all right. So, any questions or wonderings?
Sure, yeah. It's great to hear about the live specialist bit of it. So it's K through 2 this week, first grade after next. Is it all the specialists, or it's kind of like just who is able to, or how
Sure,
how does it get rolled out?
Yeah, all students will be receiving, all grade levels will be receiving like access to each specialist. There's nobody that's excluded from that. What's happening in person is like a residency model of rotating through, and so that'll be similar for the distance learners. So they'll see either 1 or 2 specialists in a week, and then rotate to different specialists for another week. And it's a few days a week. So I think second grade we're able to figure out 3 days a week, kindergarten and first 4 days a week, and then they'll have asynchronous lessons from those specialists that they've seen that week, the days that they won't have them.
Okay.
Yeah. And hopefully for sure that we'll be able to get through up until that last change date. So we at least get 1 like rotation through. We have a 5-week rotation. So we get 1 rotation through before we would have to make any further adjustments. And like I said, it's really hit or miss. I mean, it's just the incoming students. And then when we make 1 change, all the dominoes fall. And so just really trying to navigate those pieces. So.
And then regarding the mode changes, then is you've already said that for, and I've known this because I've got a kid in first, that there's a change. Are the other grades close? Like, are they at close to tipping points, or is it still fairly roomy? I mean, it's not like that you're anticipating too much of a tipping point.
Yeah, I guess, our second grade is the one that's on our radar a little bit now. We're at about 19, 20 students in our second grade classrooms, which means we can accommodate another 10, before making that shift. And then our upper grades are lower than that. They're under 20. So really, it'll just, I guess it's so hard to anticipate, like, welcome to 2020, right? Like, I just feel like, oh, I'm going to be able to predict. No, nothing. So I think coming after spring break in those first couple of weeks, we'll get a really good idea about requests. It's either going to be, we have a group of families who are just very clear, like, I'm not returning this year to in-person learning. And then those who have been on the edge and going back and forth. And I think that's where we're going to see that influx, is just that edge of, right. And knowing that there's an end date, like, okay, so if I decide not to send my student back, that means I'm with them. Or I mean, they're distance learning is what I should say. I think of my own child, and I think they're with me in my home but I'm distance learning all the way to the end of the year. And so having that definitive date. So I bet, the week, maybe this week too, we've already gotten a few phone calls this morning, but by the end of the week after spring break, I think we'll have a better idea of what we're looking at.
Well, go ahead.
I had just popping in for my notes here. Can you share what was that date again? And do you need requests by that date, or must changes be made by that date?
Yep. So the last day to request is April 26th.
Okay.
So someone could call the office on April 26th and say, I want to make a change. And then the last day that we'll be implementing changes is May 10th. So that's the 2 weeks out from April 26th. And if we were able to, we would accommodate it sooner. Otherwise, it would be that May 10th.
Right. Well, it's nice that it's not a deluge, because I know there was talk that it would just be this overwhelming wave of returning. But so I think this is a good pace. you're managing one class edition right now, and then maybe
Yeah.
there might be another. But I wonder. I pay more attention to the University of Minnesota since I work there, but they say for you're doing spring break, and then they suggest strongly, they encourage strongly that you quarantine for 2 weeks. So I'm just curious for what's the communication, or like what are you expecting for folks the families that take their folks on spring break trips, and then having
Sure.
them do 2 weeks of quarantine without doing a mode change. Because I think there were people that were sort of like, well, I'll take spring break, I'll mode change to distance learning, and then I'll mode change back. I mean, and
Yeah.
of course, this was back when we first made this change. And of course, that would have been very bad. I just wonder if you've got a sense of that.
So I don't have a sense of like who's traveling or not. I can say kind of like our school response is really like, we're not requiring quarantine after travel. Minneapolis Public Schools is not requiring that. So that would be up to the families and what they, of course, if they are, we do ask that they follow the guidelines for if they've been knowingly exposed to COVID. So if on their travels, so any of those pieces like on their travels have been exposed, then they would need to go into quarantine. And then symptoms, would need to go into quarantine. But if someone travels, we're not requiring the quarantine from that.
Right. And so I imagine it makes it easier on the school to not have to deal with 30% quarantining in a sense, just manage, all of a sudden 30% of the school having to stay home like a sick day. There's a chat. Let me just go take a quick look at what the chat said, or you can certainly see it. Several families that are doing that, but it's not required. Yes, Lisa, thank you. So we're one, for example, my wife is taking my son to, her folks are vaccinated now, and Laura just finished getting her vaccination done. So she's going to take 2 weeks, and then we're going to quarantine for 2 weeks afterwards. And so I bring it up in the sense, just to put us out there for discussion among PTO, understanding that MPS is not requiring a quarantine, which we sort of knew. Do we want to have any messaging on our own social encouraging folks? Do the best that you can. We'd prefer, personally, from a parent point of view, obviously, I would love for people to quarantine, because I really, don't trust anyone else's judgment about about what they're bringing into the room. And at the University of Minnesota, it's they put out the word strongly suggest, strongly encourage. They're not requiring it, but I can't tell you how many times the emails gone out saying to students, if you're spring breaking, plan on quarantining. And if you're in the dorms, let's come up with a plan here. So I just want to put that out there. If PTO at all wants to have anything on our social about that, just to the folks that pay attention to the things we say.
I might just chime in, just say that we're also one of those families. We're going to do a 10-day quarantine on the way back. And we're also getting tested on the way there, and on their way back, we're actually doing a quarantine this week. But I don't know if it feels right for me to, if the school district isn't requiring a quarantine, I feel like I think it's important to just say, like, we encourage families to get tested if they're going out on quarantine before they come back to school. Getting that negative test back will put everybody else at ease. I think if they're knowingly exposed, echoing some of what you just shared, Brianna, if they're knowingly exposed, they should go into quarantine. We could share out that there's a couple of families on the PTO who are, taking some, 10-day or 2-week quarantine post spring break. But I think like the post any travel, to be specific, but I think that it's got to kind of, I don't want to get into that. It's too messy. I think there's not enough of us here.
That's fine. I
was going to say too, the timing is kind of confusing, because the district did send out guidelines from the CDC, but the guidelines from the CDC were 7 days. Yeah. But, testing negative. So I'm confused, and I don't know if it's the difference between international or traveling by airplane. The CDC didn't really specify. It just said 7 days negative test.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's true. Yeah, they came up with the fact that if you did get the negative test, it is a shorter window, just to be careful. And if you have a possible exposure, then you get that middle ground. And if you are actually positive, obviously you've got that 14-day, right? So that was a 7, 10, 14. I think just the act of quarantining is a thing. And I think that's fine. I just wanted to put that out there, mostly for the messaging. Like I'm pretty sure when I acknowledge, to my social circle that we're actually going on a plane, which is like a poo-poo thing to sort of do. We're going to say, yeah, but we're going to be responsible, and so folks don't count on seeing us for a while, right? So I get it. I just wanted to, because the school has its own district-led policy. As PTO, did we just want to have any extra messaging to encourage folks to be careful, wear their masks, spay and neuter their dogs? You know what I'm saying?
I'm not sure that all of our families know how, extraordinary we have really done as a community. I mean, there have been a lot of other schools that have had to, close classrooms or close grade level. I mean, we really have done a really, really good job as a community. So it'd be really nice if we can keep that up. That our community has done really well.
I think that's a great spin. I mean, would it be worth our while just to have a 2-sentence statement something along the lines of our community has done well. Brianna has updated us. Of course, now I've got to my 2 sentences. Brianna has updated us to our 0 COVID hits since we've come back to in person. As we all venture off on spring break, let's do the best we can at healthy practices that keep your families and your community safe. Maybe it was that good enough without having to say to people, hide in a hole for 10 days.
I wanted to thank you guys just for the reminder, because as we're sending home information or the email blasts to remind families about that, and that the opportunities for testing that exist, and just keeping everybody safe. Just reiterating what you guys are saying.
Yeah. If ever, absolutely. As an anecdote, my family, we did our testing yesterday at the convention center, and holy moly, was it like a totally different experience. There was hardly anybody there. We were in and out in like 7 minutes. Most of that, and it's a spit test, not the needle up the nose test. So it was great. I mean, relatively speaking, it was great. It's not like the thing you do on a Friday night. But so it's not that hard. We could certainly also say that it's not that hard for people to just at least do the test before they leave or after they come back.
Well, and Linda, did you mention that we have a few other things being sent out this week?
Okay.
What was that?
Linda, did you mention that there's a few other things being sent out this week?
Yeah, there'll be, before spring break, hopefully, I asked Diego if he wanted to write a message, but just at least there'll be resources and dates and things. And
sure. So I also think and I can talk with Miss Mary in our health office too, who really does a great job. I mean, just even, and Linda, we can connect at school tomorrow. Sorry, my little one's about to interrupt the meeting, so I'm really sorry. But just having her even put in there, you can get tested at these spots, just like some of that information I think is really helpful. So I'm making note of that too. And we can connect tomorrow, Linda, and with Miss Mary too, just to see other pieces and information, the districts, what they state and the information the district has given too.
And can I just take advantage of you guys as a little bit of a focus group? If you do receive our email blasts, if you have any feedback, constructive criticism, because I don't really get any information back from people usually. So if you find them useful, or if there's anything you think we could do to improve it, I'd appreciate hearing from you guys.
Sounds
I'm one of the ones in your metric. I read them. I get them twice because I get them to do 2 different emails. So you're getting a double count on me, Linda. I don't know if you're actually tracking metrics at all or not.
But I do get a report of who receives them. And we have really tried to build up to make sure that every family, we have an email address for every family. I think there might be still 50 at school we don't have emails for, but that's why we do the robocalls to follow up. Because most of that information that does go on the email is on our website, to just remind people to look for it there. But thank you.
All right. Go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead. I was going to say anything else.
No, I think they're really clear. One thing that we may I don't know how quick your turnaround is on them, Linda, but one thing that might be interesting to offer too, COVID related, is I don't know if they're going to do this again, but I know Alina was running some community vaccination clinics for 55404 and 55407. And that might be another way to, I mean, even if you were to get in touch with the Alina community clinics, and if there's one coming up, that might be an interesting thing to blast out to families, because I imagine most or a lot of them live in 55404, 55407.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's perfect. That's great.
I had a nurse friend who was able to clue me in on one of the first ones they did. If I hear, I'm happy to forward that on too as well. They can be kind of hidden. They don't, then when they've come out, it's like this, you stumble upon the flyer. But I would imagine that especially at the end of this next week or early, even during spring break, they'll probably start really targeting a neighborhood. So.
Cool. Any other comments or new questions for Brianna? I do have one more, but I'm trying really hard not to hog the mic. Seeing none, right? So just a follow-up question, new topic though, is how where does Bancroft stand in terms of its capacity with the incoming 21-22 school year? Are we at capacity in terms of in community? Second lottery is unfolding, and I know second lottery is particularly focused on magnet type stuff, but people are interested in I think this, like I heard Burroughs was already at capacity, for example, so how do we stand, Brianna? Is there something you can share?
So capacity with what we have been budgeted for enrollment, we are full. Capacity of our school, there's a lot more space left in our school. And it is my understanding that the second lottery is focused, what I was recently told, and Diego and I were like, well, thanks for that information, but is focused on magnet schools. And so they're I was told specifically, they're no longer placing students from outside the community school boundary at a different community school. So that's kind of the messaging that I've recently received. So we are full for any out of area enrollment. Now, if somebody is within our area and wants to attend Bancroft, they would make sure that we could have the capacity for that.
Right, and I think that's where a lot of the mix is, because they do maintain that. Well, I mean, of course, listen to me as if I work there. My understanding is that they maintain that buffer exactly for what you're saying. Somebody moves into the area in July, is there room for them to come in September? And so so that probably means something like 20. There's that small number of walk-in, as if you were a restaurant, you keep that small number of walk-in tables.
Sure.
So what is our number then? Based on budget, what is our student enrollment?
I can give you the exact number in a couple minutes, but it's about 380, I believe.
Okay, yeah, and I think that
I'll put the exact number in the chat as well, but yeah, it's about 380. I can tell you, I think we had, I think it was about 30 to 40 who were outside of area who were enrolled during the lottery process. And 16 of those are incoming kindergartners. So that's kind of like the gist of the data that I have on those pieces.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, folks, for Brianna's update or new business we should take up at this point that's more specifically directed toward Brianna, the principal deposit? Yes, Michelle.
I was just curious. Well, we were one of the families that was lucky enough to get in. But for other people I've been talking to, do you know how the waiting list will work? Because I imagine that, not everybody. I know there's spots for people in the neighborhood, but probably not everybody in the neighborhood is going to be enrolling. Probably some of them are going to be enrolling elsewhere. How do the waiting lists work? Because I would imagine those are going to be quite a bit of movement on the waiting lists before fall, but maybe not.
Yep. So I've been told that there's no waiting list for those who are outside of the area. So while there's a waiting list, it's not going to move anywhere because they're done placing students who are outside of the boundary lines in the school. So, so if there was a student who wants to attend our school within the area, they would find them a place at our school. And if for some reason then we became completely full after, budget adjustments or whatever, then they would put them on a waiting list and find them a place at a magnet school. But otherwise, my understanding, what I've been told from placement is that there's really no waiting list for those who are outside of the area for a community school.
Right. And if I could, and maybe I'm just throwing fuel on a fire here, but as a parent's advocate side of things, from looking at it from that side, there is the potential. There is that slim chance of that first week of movement of families. One family that had been slated to come in decided to go out of district instead, and so all of a sudden a spot opens up. There's no one else to take it. That'll go to now. I mean, that's one of those things where you're just on the phone that week up to try and get into the school. They wouldn't turn away if a spot was there, is my first understanding, just from discussions at district about that's a very slim chance. Don't even think about that. Don't even bank on that. But I do sort of want to put that out there.
However,
and of course,
I guess I would say in regards to that, if they found that student a spot at their home community school, what I have noticed through conversations is that that's their first priority. So they're going to maintain that. So they wouldn't move one student from one school that they're currently enrolled in and pull that enrollment to another. I think that it would be a very slim chance right now, but yes, very, very slim. There's, maybe they'll start to dig into that. We'll see.
Yep. No, I hear you. And I know there are a lot of strategizing and things that are going on elsewhere on other forums, particularly on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Fingers crossed, maybe they'll, but the budget, I know budget submitted, but I have this whole hope of Bancroft. Let's just give them a couple more spots. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'll be totally upfront. I'm one of the lucky ones who got in. So, I'm living vicariously through my son. My son is one of the lucky ones who got in. And but we are hopeful for people in our play group, in our bubble, because they, he keeps saying I have 16 friends. He's counting the same 16 friends he had in kindergarten as his 16 friends now.
I don't think I have that many friends, so he's rocking it. I'm just saying, as an adult. I would also say, I'm sorry, Michelle. I know, the student placement, to just be honest, it's been really frustrating for me. And I sat through a couple meetings and worked really hard to get clear answers. And so after one meeting, I told Diego, I'm I don't want to lie to our families. I was telling them there was a chance for a second lottery. Now it feels like there's no chance. And so just really trying to be open and transparent. They could always, switch around. It sounds like there's a list. The deal is we know that there's a list of students outside the area who want to be at Bancroft. There was over 130 requests to be there. And so essentially, we have been told that, well, yes, there's a waiting list, but not really, because we're not going to do anything with it.
Yeah. So
there's a list of students who want to be there that didn't get in, but they're never getting in. So they're not really calling it a waiting list.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. No, I think we sort of hear the line that you have to walk. And certainly that's, I think, part of that. We, as a parent teacher group, we do some, we like to advocate for our parents in a way that might be a little counter to what the district is wanting of us. So that's where conversations go. Okay. Anything else at this point, or we should probably move on. But thank you, Brianna.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I am going to now reach back out to student placement and be I have parents who are being told they're on the wait list and you just told me this. So just don't worry. I like to get my clarification and points across. So I will reach back out to them. So I'm sorry that it feels like conflicting information for you. And that's not my goal at all.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add one quick little thing, just because there are so many families who are leaving Bancroft and because they're outside of the area now. Saida and I have been following up with families, especially those who might not really understand what's going on. just to make sure that they do understand, and about the second lottery. So this would, mostly be Somali and Spanish speaking families, just because the messaging has been so complicated that we just didn't want to like turn people out to the, to not, especially if they don't understand, and just kind of checking in with folks.
And I think that's great. And it's great, first of all, to know about that effort. And I imagine, Linda, if there's anything we can do on PTO to sort of help message out, we are limited in our email lists to the people that volunteer to us. And I totally understand how we can't get shared master lists. But if, I'd like to say you could certainly lean on us to help speak with our peers, our co-parents out in the community. So all right, Jason, funding requests I think is next because there's a few big things to talk about. And if I'm wondering if you just have I imagine the health of our finances are great, but if you just wanted to give us that official A-OK, and then we can talk funding requests.
Yeah, there's can you hear me?
Yep.
Since we last checked in, there was $6,700 in expenditures on the Back Museum, Gilwood's Farm, and Stages Theater for virtual field trips. The usual monthly Zoom expense, $255 for the book club. And then the big expense was $4,900 for the t-shirts. There was deposits of $319 from, I'm not sure why, but we got a check from Custom Ink that we purchased the t-shirts from with the memo line of fundraiser for about 200 and some odd dollars. And there was $45, I think, or $35 from box tops for education. There is a pending expense of $1,200 for Wing Young Huey still of a check out there that just hasn't cleared yet. And post that charge, we'll be sitting at just about $70,000.
Great.
Just on the Wing Young Huey expense, have they not given you an invoice yet?
Jason, we can't hear you.
Or Christopherson.
Think we lost your volume?
Me? Jason?
There.
Sorry. I got a new microphone and I'll just croon into it for a moment. We dropped off a check for Kira, and Kira said she was going to get it paid. Christopherson?
Okay, perfect. Yep. Thank you.
So that's where we're at, state of the finances. And then we have the one request out there, I believe at the moment, only one current request for to pay for microphones that I believe we discussed a couple meetings ago. At first we discussed, like 4 meetings ago, the idea that PTO would cover 10% of the replacement or replenishment of headphones at the end of the school year, and then the subsequent one, I believe, is it still very low? I can't quite tell.
You sound fine.
Okay. And then I think the subsequent meeting we had agreed to cover all the cost of the microphone replacement. So that's only pending one, and there was a note I got from Sue that she was able to source a cheaper version of the same one, but I didn't get a quantity or a total amount for that request.
Do you mean headset instead of
What did I say?
microphone?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
That's all right.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Sue couldn't be here tonight, but so I was going to speak for her. But as far as with the headphones, she was able to find headphones that are just as good as the other ones, but at a much better price. Because we understand that these are probably going to be consumable. they just, they only last for so long and then they break. I mean, it's the same thing with when you have headphones at home too. So we just don't want to spend too much on headphones because again, they do break at times. So that's why she decided to go with the cheaper version, but they're actually really good headphones. So I think that one thing that I think is a little unclear is a lot of the field trips. A lot of that money comes out of our grant money or out of the Masonic Lodge money. And then like the headphones and the t-shirts, that's all from PTO funds. Is that correct?
It sounds right to me.
Yes. Yep.
I just want to distinguish between those two because they're really different pots. So.
Yeah, those field trips are kind of prepaid, right?
Yeah, and they're written into our all of our units and into our curriculum. So it's not like discussing whether or not we're going to have those certain field trips. But we can always add to it. We just, we count on those field trips as teachers to be part of our curriculum for the families and for the kids.
Yep, I think, and I mean, thanks for bringing up those points of clarification. And I think that's the way we see the role of it is not to yay or nay something for the sake of being fiscally prudent or whatever the term is, but it's more a process that we have a start and an end and a resolution to a process, and that and I think particularly since there's just so much that we couldn't do, and by we I mean the school couldn't do, we are really gung-ho for spending some of that money on as many virtual experiences as we can sort of tack on to sort of help the kids sort of see outside the classroom, but not inside their own room.
even stamps as an example too. Like
yeah.
Stamps, so more stuff could be sent to kids and whatever else. Like, I didn't differentiate. It is differentiated in the budget. I could get into the specifics of it, but that's where we're at.
Is there just speaking of process, is there any decisions that we need to make on the headphones, or is that just brought up just because we are ready to go with that, or?
Yeah, I'm certain that we approved it at a meeting, and the maximum charge at that time was $4,400, or that's what we paid last time, and Sue found a cheaper one, so it would be less than that. So unless there's any objections, I think we should move forward with it.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think we this was December, and when we had said it was cool, it sounds like we just need to actually know quantity and price. But let's just get an extra confirmation here. If let's just put it to a vote. Everyone throw a 1 in the chat for yes, a 2 in the chat for no. PTO funds replenishment of headsets as Sue has sort of sourced.
Thank you.
And I see the ones.
Unanimous. And then if I don't know, Lisa, if Sue wants us to buy those directly, or if how it'll be, if you let me know.
Yep, I'll check in with her. I can check in with her and see, and we'll get back to you tomorrow.
Awesome.
All right, and it looks like the yeas carry, so that's our second confirming vote on this. So let's spend the money. Okay, and then do we need to vote then on that other funding request that came via email? Jason, was there another funding request that came over email, or am I misunderstanding that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
It could have been, I was part of an email that I think somebody from the PTO was also on in regards to photos. But as a school, we are going to do school photos. That was something else I think, I think it's the last week of April. We will be doing school photos. And so we told the teachers who had asked about that we got it covered. So that
actually, that's a great thing. I totally forgot about it. And even though I keep getting emails from LifeTouch, I'm like, wait a minute, like they had us booked in March. But how does it happen for distance learners?
That's such a great question, and we have about 4 weeks to figure that one out, maybe 5 weeks. So we are working to figure out what it looks like for distance learners. We have a couple ideas floating around. I mean, it would really be, I think, bringing the students in a 5-minute time slot. You know, their family would have to bring them in. And then also, I mean, we've gone through a lot of conversations about it, just Diego and I, as well as our social worker, Kathy, and in what ways is that equitable or not? If I'm relying on someone to transport. Anyway, so there's a lot of things that we've thought through and trying to figure out if there's ways that we could take photos for our distance learners from a distance, you know, just to make sure that they're also included if they would like to be. So we have some things to think through, but picture day is happening.
Okay.
So, and there'll be opportunities for our in-person and distance learners.
Okay. I have been bandying this about, and then I stopped thinking about it when I saw the Life Touch thing. But assuming that this is even doable, I would like to volunteer porch portraits if we have families that don't want to come to school. Maybe I can just get to them and do a porch portrait.
Okay.
And do that, because I've read how Life Touch has had other families in other districts, not here, upload photos, and I totally get it that would suck for some families if all they have is a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, you know, you look forward to, like, this is the thing that you mark your kid's growth with, right? I mean,
sure, yeah.
So anyway, so I just want to sort of put that out there. I don't really know what I'm committing to, so but I think if for the sake of conversation, keep my name on that list, because I certainly feel like
it sounds good. Sounds good. If we come up, if those are kind of some parts of the pieces, we'll definitely reach out to you. Like I said, we haven't figured out all the pieces yet, but we're having a picture day, and
no, that's exciting. That's exciting. Okay, good. Anything else, Jason, from funding request land or treasury land, or just from your household land?
No, just that if there are other opportunities for field trips and whatever, even regardless of that line item, like the funds that we have in aggregate are as big as it's ever been projected to be at the end of the year. So if there's other things, like anything that we can do to support, we would love to take advantage of that. So if there's other requests.
Cool.
Do the funds for the field trips have to be spent by the end of the year?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah,
we
full disclosure, I work my employer does a lot of field trips, but I don't think they're doing anything virtually.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Anything else from folks with questions back or comments back? Okay, great. Thank you. Seeing none. Moving on to, we have a speedy turnaround on this, the t-shirt distribution plan. I think for those of you, I'll just give a quick context because I know there's an email chain, but PTO wanted to provide all families who wanted one a t-shirt that had messaging, the Bancroft messaging. Part of it came out of the notion of a lot of our community is going off to other schools. Wouldn't it be nice if they carried a little bit of Bancroft with them? The other part of it was just to sort of celebrate the year, since we have not been able to really be a community in a like in-person sense. So it was just a nice kind of thing to do. And so the concept really rested upon buying every student a shirt, put it in their hands. So now we've bought all the shirts. We got to figure out the put it in their hands part. And so the goal, to sort of wrap it up, is to try to see about doing it by Thursday, because there's a materials pickup Thursday for the distance learners. And there's a notion of getting shirts to the classrooms for the in-person people Thursday, since there's no school Friday. This last bit, the last two sentences I just said to you, was literally over email just today. All that other stuff has been working, and that's why we've got the shirts done. So the question I'm putting forth to the group tonight is, can we do it by Thursday? What is feasible, what is doable, or should we just take the post spring break as an extra time to figure it out? And I'm putting that out there to the group to sort of and I know Alicia sort of stepped away, but she's on the email chain, so she's aware.
I think so. The materials pickup is on Friday, and I think we're just going to go ahead with that no matter what, because that's easy. Okay. The t-shirts are in the building, and so whoever comes can pick out the size they need. the idea that I talked with Diego about this afternoon was about doing a Google form so that parents, because I think somebody had mentioned like having teachers kind of guess the size, and I think that's too much. That's not something we want to put on them, but we could put together tomorrow a Google form and send that to folks and do a follow-up robocall and let teachers know to let them know through Seesaw or whatever to submit the size they want for their child. So, I mean, it's going to, and then I think it was Alicia, somebody said if we put all of these things outside and we can socially distance that, you know, we could have some volunteers come out in stuff bags for each classroom. That would be on Wednesday. So it would be quick turnaround and it would be trying to figure out, you know, getting families to respond as soon as possible. And we can try that and see who we get before spring break. And then whoever we don't, it would be after spring break. I don't know if that's just too much chaos or what do you guys think?
That's a good question. Lisa, you had your hand raised. Do you want to, you had a question? I want to respond.
I just wonder if it's going to get confusing about who's in distance learning and who's not. So the ones that are going out Friday should be the ones that are not that are after spring break, but there still will be probably another flux of families switching. I'm just wondering if it's going to get confusing about if they've received their t-shirts or not, if we wait till the next one, when that will be a more accurate picture probably of who's in distance learning the rest of the year.
Gotcha. So what is that last pickup date? If we're trying to think about timeline, do we know?
So I think Diego said it wouldn't be until May, and so I think ideally we should just get as many out as we can as soon as we can, and try to track as best as we can who has gotten one. The messaging to the in-person and distance learning families, I can do that separately, you know, with the robocalls and the emails. I've got the separate list set up, and I think, you know, there'll be some crossover, but not, you know, a huge amount.
Okay. Any other comments? So the discussion, just for clarification, and Alicia, I see that you're back. So we're talking t-shirt distribution, and I know you're on the email chain, so you're mostly aware of the background of it. Now we're discussing, do we try to make the materials pick up Friday for distance learners and try to get it to get the Google form out and back again so that we can put t-shirt distribution on Thursday? The other notion, though, is that there is going to be a May materials pickup, and because there's flux with subpopulation sort of mixing in, you know, some distance learners becoming in-persons, if we did half now and half later, that's going to get a little wonky. So why not just do everything later? That's the discussion point we're at this point. And of course, this hinges upon just a little bit of a volunteer effort. I know, Alicia, you said you have Wednesday availability. I have tomorrow availability and Thursday, but I don't have Wednesday. So I could certainly come in if we do try to make a deadline. I know I have availability tomorrow. Anybody else in this group think they have some availability tomorrow or Wednesday to stuff bags or what have you if we do push? Because that's what this hinges on.
Can I just, or sorry, Brianna, you have.
No, go ahead. You go first.
I was just going to say, like, I mean, in the efforts when I have distributed large quantities of t-shirts in a short period of time, it's usually worked in that we have the boxes there and then like people come and tell us what size and you're like, so for your materials pickup, my vote is like put the boxes out and let you grab the sizes that you need. And just wondering, curious, like if their boxes are in the school somewhere, could we recommend like teachers like just go grab sizes that they think their kids would need and just grab some sizes from the t-shirts and then just take them to the classroom and like kind of throw them, you know, to the kids in the classroom and stick them in the backpacks? Is that too crazy? I mean, it's less formal. I mean, potentially, but it sounds like there's extra t-shirts. Maybe that would just be a easy way to mass distribute.
I think I would say, I guess just guessing a kid's size can be hard, but if you actually have the t-shirt in hand, right? Not as much. I think my opinion is no matter what, we can easily distribute for the distance learners on Friday. I guess my wondering is like, how how important is it? It sounds like there's like this mad rush to get to the in-person learners on Thursday. And I guess I'm just wondering, like, is that so that every student has it like within a couple of days of each other, or where is that coming from? Or could we do that distribution effort the week after?
Yeah,
and that would be just fine too. And then that would give a little bit more time. If we do a Google form with sizes on them, then that would give more time for people to respond. And then we would have a substantial amount of our in-person learners who have filled it out. And so then we know from there. And then those who didn't fill it out, we can say, would this one fit you? Great, here you go. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like that would just be, my opinion is that would be better. But
yeah, I think so. The only question I want to put out is, does it matter if anybody double dips? Does it matter if a distance learner picked one up pre and then got moved to in person and then picked one up there? If we do have extra, then I think that probably works out fine, and then we could forego the whole Google form thing, because I think waiting for an opt-in on a T-shirt distribution is.
Well, I think we should for the in-person learners. I agree, Brianna. They can wait until after spring break. I think the distance learners, when they come on Friday, should definitely get it, and we'll advertise to them as an incentive to actually come in and get their materials. And like I said, we can communicate that so that the in-person learners don't necessarily hear about it until after spring break. I still think we need to keep it off of the teacher's plate because it's just too much for them, and let parents, and we'll do the Google form after spring break or during spring break so they can respond.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that they can get their in-person students get their T-shirt, sometime after spring break.
Do all parents use Seesaw in person still? Yes, right? No? Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah,
would say,
okay.
I mean, I don't know. To be really transparent, my daughter uses Seesaw, and I haven't looked at any of those Seesaw announcements for a really long time.
Okay.
So I'm really glad that you're laughing at my humor tonight. I keep looking at you and I'm like, oh, at least somebody thinks I'm funny and connects with me.
I get confused when I get the Seesaw update because it's something that I'm like, oh, I don't know. Okay, I think she wrote 0 3 times. I have no idea what this says, but okay.
So that's what I do. I look at it and I'm like, oh, I don't have time for this. I'm good. So yes, but if there's other people who are like me and don't always look at it, I'm not sure if that's the best mode of communication. But it could be one mode.
Well, no, yeah, and that I was bringing it up in the sense of, pick the one best one versus having the multiplicities of inputs. But if Google form is the one ring to rule them all, then that certainly could be the thing.
The nice thing about Google form is the way that it formats into a spreadsheet. And so when someone fills out a Google form, it automatically shoots into a spreadsheet. So on the back end, right, we can sort it and do all those things. So we can sit there and sort it by grade level and that. And that just makes it, like, that piece in my mind makes it easier. I'm sure there's many other systems that can do the same thing.
So that work, though, that gets put on the teachers, because obviously we are not going to be able to get into the form and take a look at student lists and work with that.
Well, I was thinking, like, if we did we could just have you guys do a teacher. I guess I wasn't seeing that being a problem, Paul, with like putting together a Google form with the teacher's name, and then like your name and then your size, and then, and then it gets sent out through Bancroft, email blast.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be okay then for, if it's from the PTO and then they know what they're filling it out for, then I don't think there's any like data privacy within that.
Okay.
Really. Now, of course, now I started thinking deeper into it because you got me thinking about it. But I think that if it's coming from, like, PTO has bought everybody a shirt, like, fill this form out for the PTO to know what size your child needs. Like, if it's just knowing that the PTO is the one looking at it and not, teachers. And then we can send that out. Go ahead, Linda. Sorry.
We could say that, the PTO is giving you this, the PTO is providing these shirts, but the PTO doesn't necessarily have to run the Google form. Because I could do that.
That's
and
true. Yeah.
It's just so we avoid the data privacy issue, and
that's fine.
And I could provide totals if we have people come in, but that way
And that's because it's coming out through the school's mass email system, right? Not through our email list.
Right. And then the information coming in still stays with the school. But then, you know, if we have volunteers coming in to, you know, put together classrooms worth of t-shirts, you know, that's not violating their privacy.
All right.
Sounds good.
So yeah, there we go. So Linda's the firewall.
Okay. I'll work with Nicole on this because I know she had some ideas, but she's also an MPS employee.
Yep. Okay.
So to sum it up, then we're going to move forward with the distance learning t-shirt distribution on Friday. We can print like we'll print like our full school list and just highlight everyone who gets the t-shirt. We usually like to mark who gets materials anyways. And then Linda will put together just a form, and then we'll probably plan on that distribution for after spring break, like the week after spring break, and give a little extra time to put the things together and such. Does that sound what we talked about?
Yeah, I think that's a good, yep. And then I do want to add on to this, and this is related to a topic further down the line. What time are we at? We're at 6:30, is that right? Yeah. But this is an opportunity perhaps for a PTO table on Friday during materials pickup, to try to get some FaceTime with folks and then collect their emails in a way that they volunteer to us so that we can communicate to them. So what this is linked to is a topic on the agenda where we've got new families coming in, we've got some families staying. We have lost all of our FaceTime opportunities because there haven't been any family nights where we could table. How else could we reach out to folks? So if we're having folks coming in for this materials pickup because we're giving out t-shirts, I would like to put it out there for PTO to have a table. I'm certainly able to staff. If anyone else wants to volunteer some time, they are welcome to it, but I needed to get this past muster. Brianna.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. You know, Diego and I talked a little bit about if we could welcome any volunteers in the building that day. And since there will be no, I guess, pending your own at-home health check, just as we do with our students. And then there will be no students in the building that day, and there won't be a lot of teachers. Diego and I are the materials passer outers. And so if PTO would like to staff a table, you know, one at a time, I would say probably max two, you know, at a time, just so we're not putting a bunch of bodies right there. That would be fine.
Okay, great. And that's an indoor thing. I mean, because I also imagine I could certainly just be like Greenpeace and stand outside of a department store door with a clipboard.
Yeah, it's indoor and it's 10 to 4. That will be that was advertised.
Okay, so I've obviously heard me volunteer myself. Does anyone else want to volunteer at this point today? Or I'm also going to put it on Facebook to ask for people if they want to come out. But 10 to 4 Friday, if you're available, throw it in chat. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot now, but we all can still see chat. If you're available for that. And so there we go. We have a plan for 40% of our students to get t-shirts.
That works.
Great.
Great. Okay. Any other questions on this topic, or should we move on? Okay, great. Moving on. So yeah, so then we're segueing now into PTO. You know, and I did post this picture behind me, and we joked about it at the top of meeting, but one of the neat things, last year was my first year, and I felt like we got a really great mix, and you're all great too, but we got a nice big mix of people involved over the year. And of course, going digital has been an impediment, I think, in keeping our presence among parents, and as a resource, as an advocacy group, as a way of just being involved. So I just would like a brainstorm, just a quick brainstorm. We don't have to solve world peace today, but a quick brainstorm of how can PTO consider increasing its presence among our current community, certainly, but we're going to have 60% changeover, or I forget what the math was, when new school year starts, a whole bunch of people who don't know who we are. So just want to kind of put that out there for folks. If you want to brainstorm, throw ideas out, nothing is wrong. I don't have any, otherwise I'd be first to go.
I've already had a couple of inquiries, and I gave them the PTO email and the Facebook page. I don't know if you've heard from one of them.
I have two. Yeah, two
Okay,
people who
great.
have emailed saying that, and they were put on the mail list, so they are now locked in our email list for the rest of their lives. But yeah.
And we will be connecting, reaching out just, as a community building thing, probably obviously after spring break, with some sort of communication, and we can include, PTO information in that as well.
Okay.
I think if you guys were to send out like postcards again, like that might be a good way to connect. They could be more PTO specific. I think the postcards we sent last time were more just like, come to our school. But that's different now. It's all different. So it could be more just like, Bancroft PTO welcomes you. Like, here's how you can connect to Facebook. Find us on Facebook. Find us on so-and-so. Find us on blah, blah, blah. And get a list started, for new parents.
Okay, so how do we get that mailing list? How do we access that mailing list?
Oh, how did we get that through last year? Sarah helped. Do you remember, Brianna? We got it through the district, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have it. Like, I have the list of students, I have their home addresses. And so like we could just print off labels probably at school and then just label them.
If that works, that would be perfect, because I really didn't want to have to do an end around about how to get to people, but I know the ones that we did to possible folks, right? We just sort of mass hit the area rather than, but now we kind of want to just go to the people who did say yes and came.
We did send a postcard, and that's one of the reasons it was not specifically PTO, is because we wouldn't be allowed to give you the list of addresses. And so it was, recruiting postcard. I think it did have the PTO address on there, but it was mostly recruiting for the school, and PTO did pay for it. And I was in communication with the printer, to make sure that that information was kept private, fully, due diligence on that. But I think if it's PTO specific and only PTO, then I think the rules kind of change.
Well, then, okay, this is great. This is good to know, because that's certainly the hurdle that we have to overcome as PTO is, and our current email list is going to be decimated by 60%. So,
there's a couple hands up, I think, Alicia.
Yeah.
And Michelle, I don't know.
Go for it. I'm just looking at faces. I guess I'm not seeing hands, but yeah, go for it. Whoever has comments.
Hi. So my name's Alicia Waka Butler, and I'm a parent of a second grader at Bancroft, Grace. She's in Miss Ramgren's classroom. I had Grace there for kindergarten, and we skipped last year there, and we're back. But as an American Indian parent, I always, have done, offered my volunteerism or, input if there's ever anything that I can help with. And I think that it has never really been taken up, even though I've offered when I've been in the office. And this is just some feedback at this point. And I think, if people do even show an inkling of interest, I think office staff or whoever should really kind of take those interests to heart. And I don't think just adding someone onto an email list, but, giving a call and doing sort of like a welcome message, or even sending something more personal, like if there were people who reached out, because when you just add them onto the email list, sometimes that's very like cold and not as welcoming, and so you don't really know what the culture is like. So that's just some feedback, but I also want to encourage, because I also work in education. I'm the American Indian Cultural Liaison for School District 197, and I work with parents heavily. And one thing that a lot of the schools that I felt have been more successful in welcoming and integrating our American Indian families, and also families of color, have taken trainings um, themselves from like a PTO. There's been trainings on Bedote, which is the sacred site where Fort Snelling is. And these trainings are offered through like the Minnesota Historical Society, the Minnesota Humanities Center, which does a lot on absent narratives that are happening, not only for American Indians, but all, families who are of BIPOC and other BIPOC communities, just to help integrate and learn about that lens that you may not be part of. I know it's a humbling experience. Even for myself, I know that as American Indians, we are standing by like our Asian and Pacific and Islander brothers and sisters. But myself personally, I don't have many people in my community or like my circle who are Asian or Pacific Islander currently. I mean, throughout my life, yes, but I just also feel like I need more education, and doing some of those opportunities for our parents would be really helpful. I know that I've been able to ask like the Minnesota Historical Society and other people, or even myself, like different cultural liaisons, to do presentations for parents, to also just understand the perspective and experience of the BIPOC community, and put on that lens, so to speak. So I just encourage like maybe even to have different learning sessions, even at our PTOs, and including our parents of color. So, I'm always willing to help provide information and resources and plan things, even for like, I know it was kind of awkward, with the pandemic, for like Native American Family Involvement Day, which happens district-wide for MPS. So, I'm always here. I would like, I don't know if you want to have like a committee to have maybe an affinity group for the parents PTO, or how you'd like to move forward. But, I'd be willing to sit on that and help any way I can. I think with the incident of George Floyd and his death, I think it's just also a really pertinent time to address some of these and include our families of color, because we are so close to the heart of the matter. So those are just some of my thoughts. I just really want to encourage our learning and not just, give a, oh, how can we get families in? Well, we got to put in some effort even as parents. And some other feedback I had given when postcards have been sent out to our families is including Dakota and Ojibwe hello and welcome, and Buju or Ha Han from the Dakota language, because those are the indigenous peoples of this area. So those are just some of my thoughts, because I get postcards and there's Somali and Spanish and everything, but not even the languages of the indigenous people who were the first peoples here. So it's just providing some of that acknowledgement, and that also creates that welcoming environment for everyone.
I think those are great comments. Thank you for the perspective, because certainly we, as a group, haven't had an opportunity necessarily to address some of those things, and not that there are any excuses for it. And I think that certainly is a good way of thinking about it. Is not only how do we reach out and how do we get these lists? Not only thinking of it from a clinical sense, but then sort of thinking of it programmatically, and what other roles does PTO play? PTO as an advocate group, PTO as a bridge with teaching staff, and certainly PTO as a resource for parents about the community that they represent. So I think that's great. Thank you. And knowing that you're on our email list, and I've already joked about this, that you're on our email list for the rest of your time, we certainly will sort of make note of the idea of you as a resource. I mean, I think it's correct to say, that if we've missed the basic translation, the welcome translation, we certainly will add that to the next postcard that we do, because we're now talking postcards here, and we're trying to replicate what we did work on during the recruitment phase. So thank you for that. And I kind of want to leave the floor open for anyone else that wants to have a response or comment back.
I did see a few people adding a couple pieces in the chat, but just thank you so much, Alicia, for sharing your perspective. And I know, oh, wait, there we go. Sorry. I know that Mr. DePaz and myself both always appreciate your feedback. And I remember the feedback in regards to the postcard, and him and I had just a good conversation about, what it is that, like, what we missed, right? And so, in just ways that we can continue to grow too. So appreciate that. And I think the ideas of having PTO and educating as adults and families that are part of our community in many different aspects is huge. And so I hope that we can continue to move forward with that, and excited to use you more as a resource as well. It sounds, just listening to you speak, I'm like, ooh, that's a great idea, that too. So hopefully that we can connect more that way. So thank you.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I'm also thinking about our Native families and really grieving of what's going to be happening to our community. A lot of our Native families will not be with us next year. They're the area where a lot of our families live is no longer in our, and so I mean, just first I would just want to say thank you for speaking your truth and speaking up. But I also am thinking ahead as far as is there something that we could do for our community? And I'm going to say specifically our Native community, because we are going to be going through a huge transition this spring. So that's just one of the thoughts that I have, just because I've talked to so many of our families that, so many of our Native families that are really struggling with this big change.
It's a good point, Lisa. And I know as a group we had discussed, but not have made any forward progress on what what a spring event might look like, where we sort of acknowledge that our community is shifting, sort of like a bon voyage type thing for the folks leaving, and then welcoming for the folks that are coming in, or that kind of just event acknowledgement. I know the T-shirts came out of that conversation originally back in the fall, and that was the one item that sort of carried forward. We could certainly from PTO leadership point of view, I'm just going to put that hat on real quickly. I was anticipating that would make its way into the April talk, so that we had April and May to sort of plan for something. Michelle, go ahead. You've got something.
Yeah, I was just first of all, thank you, Alicia. Those are just fantastic perspective. I was just thinking, this is like thinking like jumping back like 20 minutes, but I was just thinking, Linda, you were talking about having access to the email list of the new families and just thinking about welcoming people. One thing that we got, we are thankfully going to be at Bancroft next year, but we're not in the Bancroft zone. And we've already gotten emails from our new community school. And so I'm wondering if that's something that, that Bancroft can do, and maybe include in there, welcoming people, but and also include in there different ways for people to get involved. So that it could include the PTO, could include other ways for people to get involved in Bancroft, because I think it would be good, especially since I know from our perspective other schools are doing this, a way to like email families and reach out to the people who are new to the school with just kind of a warm embrace in some way. Not just with a postcard, but also with emails. I know, like, I think a postcard is a really good way to reach some families, but I think for other people, electronic means are better.
Thank you, Michelle. Linda, did you want to respond to that before I make comments?
Yeah. So we had those online, those virtual open houses, I think in December and then in January, and then were they all in January? Anyway, so, using the list that we had then, we contacted them by robocall and email. And then that's what we're thinking of going ahead and like you said, trying to reach out and have a welcoming message, and we can share information about family involvement and what they can do. And that list will be updated by those who've actually been assigned to Bancroft for next year. So then you would get those, Michelle. But yeah, I think. I had another thought. So that, and the thing for events in the spring, I think we do have some new guidelines, and those guidelines can change again, depending on what happens with COVID. But we're seeing what we can do outdoors and what space limitations are, and or maybe staggered participation. But we'll see what we can do with that.
And I'll just add, yeah, like the welcome letter, I guess as well is also in the works. I know, like for my daughter in her new school placement, it was like in the next few weeks or in the next upcoming weeks, you'll be getting a letter from your daughter's school. I was like, oh, we got to get on that. So it's on our list. And we will be sending something out, I would say probably mid-April or so, to our new families who are coming in. And I like the idea that you just like kind of stated, some ways to get involved too. So, I mean, we can put that in there and include links to PTO and such too. So I definitely know that part, just that welcoming piece is in the works as well.
I wonder then, and this, since we had clearly a successful engagement with the postcard process and making sure that we were maintaining FERPA privacy in that process, is there a way to piggyback on this letter as PTO, but just have language that's a little more aggressive in the way that it tries to recruit, rather than just saying, here's PTO's email, contact them if you want? If we could sort of try to put in language that's a little more about inviting them, recruiting them, that they're being actively sought. And where the line I'm trying to walk is, because it sounds to me like the communication therefore is school owned and PTO is just is a mention, the way that the recruiting postcard was school owned and PTO was the contact point. That was the way we got around that. I certainly would like, which is one of the reasons why I'm talking this through, is how do we just sort of be a little more aggressive with the idea of we want you, we need you, come to us, but getting it to the list.
I don't think this precludes you from submitting your own language and your own item to be included. In newsletters of past years, PTO had their own space to submit information. There were a couple of years where I ended up doing most of it just recycling from previous years, but we had the communications person for PTO previous years. Every other newsletter would submit an article or an item. And I don't think there's any reason you shouldn't be able to do that in something, even though it's coming from us.
Okay, I think that's great. I think I at least in my limited experience from last year to this year, I don't know if I'd experienced that. So that's great. I knew we made calendar listings. I didn't realize that there's a potential of like our own like a forum space or like a little corner to carve out on the newsletter. But that would be great. So can we so what I'm putting out there is then maybe we'll just have an email chain, Brianna, between PTO and you guys about what you're envisioning to go out in this welcome letter and how PTO's voice can be in on that. And then great. And then that maybe helps us sort of then get to the other part of it, which is if we have a conduit to our parents, if we've got that pathway, then we can sort of shape as PTO what some of that messaging might be regarding as a learning resource, regarding as a welcoming in a less clinical kind of way, as Alicia and Michelle have sort of raised. How does that sound to the group?
I guess I just want to also say, I don't think it excludes you from doing your own thing. Like if you were to do your own postcard, like I think it would take me 10 minutes to take the labels and put them on all the postcards for you all. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you wanted to do your own postcard, we could do that. We would just have to label them at school. Like, it's not that big of a deal, in my opinion. So, you know, so I think that we can totally figure it out.
Okay,
too.
go ahead,
So
Linda.
either way.
I do want to check with, I think, I don't know. I think there might be some rules on that.
Okay.
Even if we're not giving them the list directly, I don't know if we can, I think we need to check on that.
Okay.
And yes, yeah. So let's absolutely do that. Yeah, because I did have, I think my understanding, and again, because I've only been here for a year and a half, my understanding was there were some heavy restrictions. But let's use this opportunity then. I mean, this is pandemic. Everything's out the window, right? Let's use this next welcome letter opportunity as a way to see if we could really find a nice middle point for PTO to sort of reach, you know, its audience. It's the audience for which it wants to advocate, you know, and it's hard to get to people when we can't be giving them pizza at the same time. Okay, let's see. I just want to check time. We are at 6:54, so we're 6 minutes to time. I want to give room for new business. So just to close out this, we're gonna spend this time communicating with the school about a message. We'll put out an email to get some folks involved in some of that messaging, because I think it's probably not going to be before our next PTO meeting. So we'll carry this on over as over email chain, just to be good with time. Michelle and McGraphic. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Michelle. That's good to know. Absolutely. Great to know. And I'm going to save this chat before I forget. So let's do a new business or topics type thing. That's the time that we have at this point. New business. Was there anything else that we need to be talking about? And Alicia, thank you for that. Let me save chat again.
I guess in regards to Alicia, I feel like, Alicia, you had a lot of great ideas. I'm wondering if there's anybody that maybe would want to partner with Alicia to try to bring some of that like into action, you know, or just work together. One of the things that we were speaking about, I don't know, in one of the meetings recently, was just with the trial starting this morning. And I live very close to Bancroft, and as do many of you. And in Minneapolis, our experiences with that were all very different. And how are we offering any sort of space as a community for processing too, beyond our students, but as a community, and just thinking that way too. And so some of what you were saying, Alicia, made me think of that as well. But I don't know, I just kind of want to throw out there, I think Alicia had some great ideas, some of which could be put into action this year. And that if anybody wanted to partner to try to move some work forward with that, I think that could be really great.
Yep. No, thank you for those comments. I think we should, absolutely, first of all. And I think if we can talk through, we have this potential letter, aka postcard idea, that some of those things could go into. And if we could figure out the sourcing our emails or addresses for stuff to go to, we can then start to consider how do we reach out to our current community and how to reach out to our new community and offer them some programming. And so that might be part of it, is we could workshop what possible programming could we have in place so that when the new community comes together, or before the old current community goes out, we can sort of have something. So I think, does anyone else have any comment or questions regarding that? I think what we'll do then, Alicia, I'll send out an email. I'll send it out from the PTO one so that the other leaders, it's transparent to them as well, rather than using my own work one. And we can certainly talk through what some of the program would be, particularly, I forget who mentioned it, that we're losing, Lisa, that was Lisa, that we're losing, I mean, we're losing a lot of diversity in our groups because of the way the boundaries got redrawn. So we probably, you know, to consider reaching out to the folks that are leaving in a way apart from you know, an event that might not even happen if the rules change again. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Anything else before we close it out? I'm giving everyone 2 minutes of their life back. Do with it what you will. Don't spend it all in one place. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.